Yes, the Monetary Policy Committee has left its monetary policy stance unchanged to consolidate on the country's ongoing recovery process from recession. It therefore retained the monetary policy rate at 11.5%, cash reserve requirements at 27.5%, and liquidity ratio at 30%. Lara Folayo, my colleague, reports.
Nigeria's inflation rate is at 17.3%, up from 16.5% in January, the second highest annual rise since 2017. This figure was a major dilemma the Monetary Policy Committee was faced with at its second meeting for this year. It was torn between monetary policy tightening to tame inflation, but that could affect access to credits and output growth. Loosening, on the other hand, could lower rates while improving access to credits and employment, but it has the tendency to create excess liquidity and weaken the naira. This explains the decision to hold, so the country's ongoing recovery process from recession can be consolidated.
MPC voted 1, to retain MPR at 11.5%, 2, retain asymmetric corridor of plus 100 and minus 700 basis points around the MPR, 3, retain the CRR at 27.5%, and 4, retain liquidity ratio at 30%.
The 6 naira 98 kobo charge per unstructured supplementary service data USSD has been severely criticized, but the Apex Bank says it is a cheaper alternative to what the banks offered earlier. It also adds that the USSD is to drive financial inclusion. The committee acknowledges that the country's exit from recession is still very fragile, and the bank now wants to intensify existing interventions to better stimulate growth.
Given that we're just crawling out of recession, there's a need for us to continue to do those things that we did, and more intensely, those things that we did that took us out of recession, looking at supporting interventions, particularly in the agricultural sector, in the manufacturing sector, in the ICT sector.
Reacting to media reports credited to the fiscal authorities that Nigeria adopted a new flexible exchange rate policy for official transactions, the CBN says the country hasn't changed its exchange rate management policy. It says a complaints desk on forex buying related issues at the banks will soon be set up as it gives adequate forex to the banks. It advises those in need of forex for domestic obligations not to panic and be patient when it appears the greenback is scarce, so speculators do not take advantage of the situation. Lara Folayo, TVC News, Abuja.
Well, I have joining me to look more and discuss, of course, about this MPC meeting and the resolution reached after the two-day meeting. He's the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Dr. Yusuf, thank you very much. Good afternoon to you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon.
DG, let me start this way. What were you expecting? Because a lot of arguments, a lot of suggestions, a lot of projections before that meeting. And at the end of the day, citing all of the parameters, macroeconomic issues and all of it, the committee left rates unchanged. How did it come to you and what were you expecting?
Yes, thank you very much. I was actually expecting that the parameters will remain unchanged. So the outcome of the MPC meeting was actually in line with my own expectation. I had that expectation because I believe that the economy is still not on very sound footing. Even though we have been out of recession, the exit from recession was very marginal. We are talking about 0.11%. And even with that, quite a number of sectors are still in recession. If you look at the last GDP numbers, that's the Q4 numbers, over 10 sectors contracted. So all of these things indicate that the economy still needs to be supported significantly. And if you see what the CBN has been doing, even in the last few weeks, the CBN has been trying to even sustain its intervention. Because the recovery is still very fragile, the growth is still very fragile, and on top of that, we had unemployment figure of 33.3%, which is also an indication that the economy has not really recovered significantly. So all of these things form the basis of my own expectation that this is not the time for the central bank to be tightening monetary policy. This is the time to continue to sustain the stimulus, which is what the central bank has done. And another logic in this is that if we're able to get the economy to be more productive, if we're able to get the economy to grow the output, if output performance improves, a growth in output can even ultimately moderate inflation. Because the inflation is also about the money supply and output. If output increases, ultimately inflationary pressures will also be moderated. So there's also a relationship between output growth and inflation, an inverse relationship. And I must admit, and the CBN did say that before it came to its final decision, that this situation presented a dilemma for the Central Bank of Nigeria. We had a situation of intense inflationary pressure of over 17%, and CBN, whose primary mandate is price stability, this should be of concern naturally. But on the other hand, we had an economy that was just, as the CBN put it, crawling out of recession. We had an economy that has just posted an unemployment figure of 33%. That is very frightening. So if you have to choose what policy measure to prioritize, I think it makes sense to prioritize growth over inflation, which is what the central bank has done. I think there's a lot of wisdom in the decision of the central bank to refrain from tightening monetary policy at this time and to focus more on the issue of growth until we get to a point where we believe that, well, we have a more stable growth environment, then we can now begin to deal with issues of inflation.
There was also something expected in regards to our foreign exchange regime. Lately, the WTO DG mentioned something warning the CBN about the continuous defense of the Naira. Fitch also mentioned this with the ratings that came up over the weekend. Now, what do you make of all of this process? Let's stay with the Forex regime and the efforts by the CBN to defend. We've been talking about this for some time, but many say the danger of Naira or overvaluation might also come up as we move on with this.
Yes, the foreign exchange regime is a very contentious matter, especially under the current leadership of the Central Bank of Nigeria. The CBN, under the current leadership, doesn't believe in a market-driven policy regime. And that has been reflected in the pronouncements and policy measures over time. Whereas the conventional belief in terms of management of the foreign exchange market is to allow the market to play a much bigger role so that you can have a more efficient resource allocation. But the CBN does not belong to that school of thought, especially the governor of the central bank. So that is where the challenge is. And it's a major concern to us also in the business community because it's creating a whole lot of uncertainty. It's creating a whole lot of confidence issues. And it's even worse when it is very clear that the CBN and the fiscal authorities and even the Economic Advisory Council are not exactly on the same page as far as the foreign exchange exchange policy framework is concerned. It's not giving a very good signal to investors, and it's also not good for investors' confidence. So I think as a matter of priority, the president of the country needs to make this alignment happen between the Central Bank of Nigeria, the Federal Ministry of Finance, and the Economic Advisory Team on what exactly is the foreign exchange policy that we should run with. Of course, the CBN made the point, and the CBN governor alluded to the powers it has under the CBN Act. But again, the president has a responsibility for the management of the economy as a whole, because we need to be dealing with systemic issues here. We need to be dealing with a general equilibrium environment to look at how one policy measure is affecting other sectors of the economy. So in order to instill or inspire confidence of investors, it is important that we have a proper alignment and we have a common position among the key policy makers on what exactly is our foreign exchange policy regime. Secondly, it is important in my view that even at the MPC meetings, apart from discussing the issues of CRR, MPR, liquidity ratio, and all of that, which has a lot to do with money supply issues, which has a lot to do with liquidity management issues, a very important matter affecting the economy is also the foreign exchange. We want to see what kind of deliberation is going on at the MPC on foreign exchange policy. It is important that we have an insight into what exactly is the thinking of the members of the committee, beyond the issue of liquidity management. But on the whole, I think the situation is still not quite clear. And we talk about foreign exchange, it's not just because we want to be importing things and all of that, because it is critical to the inflow of capital. Because we need capital in this economy. And you cannot have the injection of private sector capital if there is no clarity, if there is a lot of ambiguity around the foreign exchange policy. And we have even been talking to IMF to support the government, talking to the World Bank to support the government. One issue they kept raising, which is a recurring one, is the issue of clarity around the foreign exchange policy regime. So we need to get it sorted out. We need to get clarity so that the level of uncertainty in the economy will also reduce. But I must admit that at least in the last few months, we are seeing some movements in terms of the exchange rates. We are seeing some effort to narrow the gap between all the multiple windows in the market. But it is important that we have a policy statement, a policy direction that inspires the kind of confidence that investors want to see. Because when the CBN talked about managed floats, we have the NAFEX, we have all of that, all of these things create a lot of confusion and uncertainty. So that is my view around that. Let us have something that will inspire confidence and a policy regime that is sustainable.
Dr. Yusuf, let me follow up with that, and I'm going to talk with regards to food. We know what's been happening with food price index, and the CBN governor also alluded to that, talking about insecurity and how that is affecting productivity. Now, more than 1 trillion naira has been spent to boost agriculture, various schemes. The governor highlighted yesterday the commercial agricultural farm, the Anchors Borrower scheme, and all of this. Now, how effective or what effect would you say this is really having on the pricing of food at the moment, or what level, how long will it take for us to transit into that point where we'll feel this effect holistically in pricing of food?
Well, one of the very important outcomes of the MPC meeting yesterday was the points made by the Central Bank of Nigeria about the supply side constraints in the economy and how that has also been affecting inflation. He spoke extensively about issues of security and how the growing insecurity has been affecting agricultural production and therefore having a pass-through effect to output and to the general price level. He spoke about the investment climate issues generally. He spoke about the issues of infrastructure, on how the government also needs to bring the private sector on board to deal with structural issues arising from infrastructure deficits. He made all of these points to underscore the point that monetary intervention alone cannot solve the problem of food inflation or food prices. We need to deal with all these other issues that are affecting productivity and production in the agricultural sector. So it is not enough to have the Anchor Growers program, have all sorts of intervention schemes, giving loans and all of that to farmers and those in the agricultural sector. It is more important to deal with these fundamental business environments, investment climate, and security issues. Because if you continue to have a situation where majority of the farmers who ordinarily should be on their farms are either sitting at home or in IDP camp or have even fled their communities completely, where will the food come from? So we need to deal with those issues holistically. The intervention fund is good, but you can only support a farmer that is operating or a farming community that is still on the farm. Many of them are even afraid to go to the farm now. So there has to be a collaboration or a synergy between what the monetary authorities are doing to support agriculture, what the security agencies are also doing to ensure that the farmers go back to the farm, and what the fiscal authorities are also doing to create the environment for agriculture to be more productive and more profitable. We are seeing some of the steps within the context of the Finance Act, where the import duty on tractors has been, I think, reduced to either 5% or 0%. That is good. But we still need to see a lot more around things like agricultural inputs, around the agrochemicals, around pesticides, around a whole lot of inputs that we use in agriculture. So these are the things we have to, it has to be a holistic approach. Because food inflation at about over 21% is a very disturbing situation. Because if you talk to the people on the streets, one of the biggest cries today is the cost of food. And if you are not careful, it can degenerate into a social stability problem for the government and for the entire citizenry. So this is what I think we can do around the issue of food and food inflation, which is a major component of the inflationary pressure that we are grappling with at the moment.
Let's wrap up looking at our oil sector. What are you expecting with regards to that sector? Infrastructure issues, pricing, and of course, refining concerns, and the latest $1.5 billion that has been approved for the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery.
Well, the oil sector, I think what is most important in that sector, whether we are talking of upstream or downstream, is to have an appropriate, a conducive policy environment, a conducive regulatory environment, a conducive security environment. I think those are the key factors that can make an impact on the oil and gas sector. The PIB that is before the National Assembly, if it's passed very quickly and passed in the right form with the right content, will help to address quite a number of these issues. The deregulation issue is neither here nor there. There has been a lot of ambivalence, a lot of prevarication on the part of the government. There has been a lot of political economy issues that are, intruding into the policy space as far as the deregulation of the downstream sector is concerned. As a citizen, I also sympathize with the government, particularly on the challenge of having to speedily deregulate because of the implications on the social front, because of the social implications of just an accelerated deregulation of the downstream sector, because of the likely social backlash, because of the level of poverty in the country. These are very serious social issues that I feel is also, inhibiting the speed of the deregulation regime. But it's not a question of whether we should do it or not. It's a question of how fast we should do it. And that speaks to the fact for us to get a very creative mechanism to ensure that we put an end to this subsidy and all the issues around the subsidy regime, so that we can have more investors in that sector. Then if the PIB regime is also much better, that will also help, particularly with investors in the upstream sector or the oil and gas sector. On the 1.5 billion injection to rehabilitate the refinery, that is highly debatable. There has been a lot of debate around it. I don't think it's a wise thing to do. The opportunity cost of spending that kind of money is extremely high, and it's a space which we should vacate completely for the private sector. Not at a time when the Dangote refinery is almost on stream, with a capacity that is even more than all the 4 refineries put together. So I think it's not a good thing, and I'm hoping that the government will have a rethink. We have a lot of financing needs in the educational sector, in our road infrastructure sector, in our railway system, in the security environment, in our health sector. There's so much financing that are needed in those areas. And these are areas that the private sector cannot easily go into. That is where the government should be putting its money. Not a space where the private sector can easily finance and invest. So that is my position on that.
All right. Dr. Muda Yusuf, Director General, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate this.
Thank you very much, my friend.